Hello. Can you guess what my video is about today, even though you probably already read the title? It's about Mulan and why I suck. Can you tell me why Disney hates us? There's a lot of animosity going on this year, but I think we can unanimously agree that Mulan, the remake, suck. People who've seen it say that. I feel like people who haven't seen that still say it. Hey yo, Jarvis. Yes, Leo, I am Jarvis, the blind man, who is blind and has been blind all of his life. That's cool. Have you seen Mulan? Yeah, that movie suck. So over my spare time in the weekend, I decided to watch the new version of Mulan. And it was already a tragedy because I had to pay $35 on top of Disney Plus subscription. That is a date night at the movies. And if I actually had someone to take, I would. Originally, I had planned to talk about all of the Disney live action remakes and why they don't live up to the original movies. But there's so much wrong with this new Mulan that I had to dedicate a whole video to it. Hey, what's up, you big babies? It's a me, a 16 Leo. Look, Fluffs, it's Mr. Silver Play Button.
He's so lonely.
And if you subscribe, I won't ever have to talk like this again. Okay, so the first thing we need to talk about is Disney in the 90s. They were a damn powerhouse. They had a formula. Basically, they would take a story from like the Eastern or African part of the world and translate it into the Western world. So stories like Aladdin or The Lion King or Mulan, all not traditional Western stories, but are told in that way. The other thing they did extremely well was the music that they had. In the 90s, Disney had some of the best music you will find in animation. Songs written by Elton John himself to Vanessa Williams, who sung the one in Pocahontas. And they'd have those songs to connect you emotionally to the characters so that you'd be more invested. And the last thing they did was casting off like the support characters. Genie is probably the best Disney casting of all time. The late, great Robin Williams, rest in peace. They have Mr. Bean in The Lion King. Did you know that? Zazu is Mr. Bean. And for Mulan, they had Eddie Murphy as Mushu, and that comedic value really helped sell the film. Compare that to the new Mulan with a $200 million budget, and you have to ask yourself, where did the money go to? Do you know how much money $200 million is? I could do my laundry and then do it again in the same day with that money. I want to make it clear that I'm just focusing on the movie and not the ethical issues behind the movie, which there are a ton of. But the movie itself is egregious. There are no songs in the movie. They got rid of Shang Li. Hi, Editor Leo here. Throughout the edit, I've noticed that I've been calling one of the characters Shang Li instead of Li Shang. That's tragic. However, I think I can fix it. Shang Li. Got rid of Li. They got rid of Li Shang. Hey, not too bad. It's almost like you couldn't tell the difference. There's no Mushu in this movie. And when it comes to her friends, they just got fully rid of Yao, Qianpo, and Ling. Mulan might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite Disney movie. It's funny, it's not preachy, and it serves its purpose. The thing I love most about Mulan is that there are so many levels to it. On the surface, it's just about a person overcoming their odds. If you look deeper, it's about a girl who has internal conflict about trying to please her father and her family. It's about the idea of feminism and its place in society in the Eastern world and how those ideals are outdated. Okay, let's just watch this. So the movie begins with Mulan as a young girl, as her father explains Qi to the audience, which is a power apparently only a guy can have. This is the intro scene of the movie and it's already giving me Dragon Ball Evolution vibes. Why did they make her Bruce Lee stunt double? To make things even crazier, Mulan as a child has this Qi, and they decide to show the audience this by making her chase a chicken. To which her whole village disapproves. Oh my god, why are the villagers so mad at her? They disapproved of her surviving. Who does that? It's a child. So within the opening monologue, we already have a very, very different Mulan to the original. This one possesses Qi. Yes, Dragon Ball Qi over here possesses extra powers that the original Mulan was not given. So she's already starting the movie with such advantages that the original Mulan does not have. I want to compare the introduction of her character to the one in the original movie. Mulan is the complete opposite of this character. She is a girl who is trying very hard to keep up with the family traditions and ideals. It's obviously not in her nature, and you can see this by the way that she's writing crib notes on her arm to try and appease like her family members. She's lazy like the rest of us. She gets a little brother to do her chores in the morning so that it's faster. It makes us relate to the character more because I damn sure don't have superpowers. Now, to be fair, the motivation for the bad guys in both films are quite weak. In the original Mulan, it is because China built a wall and the Mongolian soldiers were not happy. And in the remake, I think it's the same thing. I can't tell. There's like a sorcerer in this one and she is a woman and they all hate each other. The bad guys actually invade one of the areas in the Imperial City and they go straight to the Emperor, who I'm pretty sure is a warlord. Okay, so the character of the Emperor to me is one of the most important, and I'll get to it later. All you need to know about this guy is that he wants revenge and nothing else. He is so one-dimensional, it hurts.
Here's my decree.
I'm sorry, this is a $200 million movie. I don't know if you know what you could buy at $200 million. You could buy 2 buckets of KFC with that money. Why is the ADR so bad on Jet Li in the scene? What? With all that money, do you not think they could get someone to make it look more natural? He's talking like this. I am so appalled and Kanye West pissed in a Grammy. Damn, I did not do it. And I'll tell you right now, we are going to extract revenge on anyone who pours milk in before the cereal, because those people deserve to go. Why did they write this character as such a warlord? They gave him that stupid voice as well. This is my royal decree. Write that down. I will crush.
And crush.
I will crush. Oh my god, I even got scared. I said it. Everyone. Humor. So the original Mulan has a lot of humor in it. It actually serves a purpose beyond just being funny. Not only does it carry the plot, the humor in Mulan is used so strategically in a way that it actually catches you off guard when they're not being humorous. So the best example of this is in a later scene, the army in the original Mulan movie singing a song called A Girl Worth Fighting For. And in the midst of them singing and being jovial, like a Disney movie's meant to be, and they look forward and they see nothing but ruins. And it catches you off guard that you almost forget these people are in an army and they're fighting for their country. The humor is used so well that it actually catches you off guard when things get serious. And it makes the serious moments that much more effective. And that's why it's so important to have balance within the film. Just the visual gags in the original Mulan are enough to make you giggle. You have Cricket constantly acting up. You have Mulan trying desperately hard to remember her lines. Then you have the matchmaker with like a beard. Whereas the remake of Mulan is just... it's a face palm and a half. So now we get to the matchmaker scene. It's a little bit different in that there's no cricket in the live action remake. Instead, a spider scares Mulan's sister so loud that she screams, making the matchmaker fall off her chair. And while she falls, she hits a table, throwing all the teacups into the air, which Mulan uses her chi to catch, but then falls down after her hair falls on her face. Amazing. So this is their attempt at humor. Why do all of the creatures in this movie jump like they're on steroids? The humor in this movie is just forced at best, and it is so few and far between that you don't even know when to laugh or if you should. So in both movies, the matchmaker tells Mulan that she is not fit to be in this role, and this is where the movie takes a turn for like the absolute worst. There is no music in the live action remake. There is no I'll make a man out of you. There is no where will my reflection be. But the music in the animated version of Mulan actually serves a much higher purpose. So the first act and the initial obstacle of Mulan is that she wants to please her family, in particular her father, but she knows she's different. It's not like she wants to be different, she just is. And one of the first songs in Mulan is called Reflection. And because the animated version of Mulan is 30 minutes shorter, they have to pack in dialogue and exposition everywhere they can, and they do it through songs, and it's so good.
Khan.
But you see what I'm getting at, right? The music really does drive the story. And I'm so weirded out by the fact that Disney themselves refused to put this in. I'm not sure if they were going for more realism here, but you do have a flying phoenix in the movie. When you have a visual medium like film, you're not trying to tell the audience what happens. You're trying to show them and let them figure it out for themselves. That's the beauty of cinema, is that you can trust your audience. And the live action does not trust them at all. So as the story goes, the Emperor has sent for one man for each family to come and fight alongside the Imperial army. Mulan's father has actually fought in the First War and he's been injured. He has no other son, and he is the only man of the family, so he says that he will go despite the fact he's injured. Mulan sees this and she's like, I am not having this shit, bruh. And being the loving daughter as well as the rebellious one she is, she decides to take his place and leaves for the army herself. Okay, so yet another disaster. In the original story of Mulan, Mushu does not exist. In Disney's version of the animation, he does, and he is played by Eddie Murphy. He actually both gets her into as much trouble as he helps her out of. He's her guardian in that animated movie. Mushu is not just a character for comedic relief. He has an arc. See, Mushu is a guardian who is sort of exiled for not doing his job. Apparently he got someone decapitated. Don't know how that happened. And he sees Mulan as the shot at redemption. In the remake, there's just a CGI phoenix. It just looks like a giant kite. It serves no purpose to the plot. At no point does this phoenix talk or say anything or help. Maybe if she needs shade, they replace Eddie Murphy with a CGI phoenix. The only phoenix I like is Joaquin. Anyway, Mulan enters the campsite where all the men gather, and her job is now to fit in and not stick out, because if she does, her punishment is probably death. So she wouldn't pick a fight with anyone, right? Mulan gets third-partied and pushed down, and when her love interest decides to pick her up, he says, "Do you need a hand, little man?" To which he takes offense to and tries to stab him on the spot. Why'd they make Mulan so unlikable? He said, "Do you need a hand, little man?" He didn't even think you were a woman for 1 second. It worked. You take out your sword and try to kill him at a campsite where you're fighting against actual bad guys for your country. Mulan. They then both decide to fight the guy in Imperial armor who turns out to be their general. Oh, that is an old Li Shang, isn't it? Oh, Li Shang. That's not Li Shang. So now we get to the love interest of the movie. It's not Li Shang because he's not in this movie. Yes, Disney decided to take out Li Shang because of the Me Too movement. A movie that has a CGI phoenix is focused on realism. Apparently they say that a commanding officer cannot be in love with one of the soldiers. That's just not okay. To that I say, one, it's a movie. Two, if you want to be technical about it, at the end of the movie, Mulan actually invites Li Shang for dinner just for a bonus measure. Neither of them would have been serving the army at that point. So in the new movie, Mulan's love interest is this dude. You know, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him, but it's not the same. In the original Mulan, Li Shang is actually the son of General Li, and General Li has the Imperial Army. Again, the original animation has an emphasis on expectations and overcoming them. Li Shang wants to be like or better than his father, and he will do anything to get his men to the status of that Imperial Army. Of course, now comes the best part in the movie. They start training and they do the montage. They actually did bring back "I'll make a man out of you." I'm lying. They didn't. Imagine waking up and just seeing that in the morning. Just your commanding officer spinning shit around like... You're teaching them level 55 calculus. They didn't even start learning addition or subtraction. There's not really much to compare in this scene to the original. The original has the song "I'll Make a Man Out of You," which is one of the greatest songs Disney has ever produced. The saddest part in this whole movie is this character, who I still don't know his name. He's in the movie for approximately 5 minutes, and they treat him like a wimp the whole time. But there's no purpose for it. At the start of the movie, he gets smacked. In one of the montage scenes, he gets hit by a sword on the neck and he survives. I feel like they should have kept him. They tried to slice his neck and he was like, ow! But there's no payoff to this character. He gets sent home and he gets exiled and made a fool out of. And that's it. That's the last time we see him. They send him home and they shame him for being a little bit weaker than the rest of the people. Not sure why that's in the Disney movie. I think it sucks. I was rooting for him. The one thing I wish Mulan, the remake, expanded on was the pole with the arrow on top of it. In that one scene alone, we get all the information we need on Mulan as a character. She's not the fastest, she's not the most athletic, she's not the strongest, but she is smart and has more drive than every other member on that team. To work in unison, she used those two values on either hand that were seen as weaknesses, as strengths. How could you not add that scene into the remake? It explains her character so well. So now that everyone's trained after a couple days and they're ready to fight, Mulan and the crew head into battle. Just by the way, at this point, Mulan is still a boy. She somehow ends up fighting the sorcerer. The sorcerer and her have like a fight, and she throws like a star at Mulan. And for whatever reason, she realizes this is when I need to release the chi. And I couldn't do that while I was a boy because I was lying. Apparently, if you lie, you can't use chi. I guess everyone been lying except Mulan in life. She decides to let her hair down, which signifies she's a girl. It's also a great L'Oreal commercial. And she turns into David Beckham. What is the point of this movie? Every time I see the scene of her turning into Neymar Jr., she's like Neo from The Matrix versus Mongolian people. So in the midst of Mulan giving the beatdown to everyone in Mongolia, the sorcerer actually turns into 1,000 birds. What Mulan does is she hides behind a rock, takes out a bow and arrow, and starts shooting people. And she hits them, and they die. In a Disney movie? Mulan then hides using her special ability called Crouch, and nobody could see where she is, and they think it's 100 people. They actually get a mortar and light it on fire. I didn't know they had time to set this up because this was a sabotage. But anyway, they also managed to get a big rock as well, lit that shit on fire, and aimed it at her. But they missed. How do you miss that badly? This dude missed by so much that he killed his own army. Now, just like the original scene, it plays out where the avalanche takes a hold of all the Mongolians and also most of the army. Mulan actually pulls her love interest out of the snow like he's a piece of styrofoam. I don't know how she's so strong, but I guess chi does a lot for you. As soon as she pulls him out of the avalanche ends. I hate this movie so much, honestly. So I think the mountain scene deserves an actual breakdown from the original Mulan. What happens is that there's an ambush. Shang Li's men get the rockets that they used from the last scene. In the last scene, while they were singing I'll Make a Man Out of You, one of the things they did was they were lighting rockets to aim at the correct area. So they were basically doing target practice, and it pays off. And all of the rockets are used except one. Turns out there is a ton more people up on the ridge, and they all come racing down. So Shang Li is in a pickle. There's one rocket for like 10,000 dudes. And this is where Mulan's character comes into play. And even though Shang Li wants to fire at the leader, Mulan looks to the top right and she sees a piece of mountain that could probably break off and cause an avalanche. She steals the rocket and she lights it using Mushu and misses within 3 feet of the boss. And she hits the top of the mountain and it all comes crumbling down. So in the original, she causes the avalanche on purpose to save her men. So the Mongolians get engulfed in this avalanche, and Mulan's friends run to safety. Mulan has to save Shang Li, and he is drowning in the snow, and they are heading off a cliff. She does manage to find him and save him, but they are still going towards this cliff end. At the same time, her friends Yao, Qianpo, and Ling, they're standing on top of each other looking for her, and Yao shoots this arrow to save her, and he wants to hold her to safety. Unfortunately, Yao's a bit of a goofball, and he misses the arrow, so he thinks that he's lost them. But again, Mulan, using her courage under fire, she takes her own bow and arrow and shoots the arrow right back to Yao, and he catches it. As soon as Yao realizes that he has the arrow in his hand, he gets yanked forward because they're already off the cliff, and each man scrambles until Qianpo can pick them all up. It creates this tension at the end of Act 2, like they're this close to not making it, and they just make it up the mountain. It's an amazing scene that displays Mulan's courage and forward thinking, as well as showing the group's dynamic and camaraderie. And it just makes me realize how crap the other movie is. So in the remake, after the avalanche, for some reason the sorcerer tips off Mulan because girl power. Anyway, Mulan goes and tells that to the army, but they're like, ugh, you're a girl, even though she exhibited superhuman powers. But her love interest comes out and he's like, well, she's the best warrior we've ever had, and she's the bravest and smartest and cutest. As soon as he says that, everyone else, like it's Dead Poet Society, comes together and they're like, I believe Fa Mulan. I believe Fa Mulan. For absolutely no reason at all, the commanding officer has a change of heart and is like, Mulan, you're so brave and so cool. I trust you to lead us to defeat Bori Khan. It's such a weird piece of writing because the captain who hates Mulan, like in the same scene, goes from like, I don't want to talk to you, to, you know what, you should lead the army right now. Nothing happened to influence that change except her army members saying, yeah, I believe her. In the original Mulan, she has a chest injury and the doctor who sees to her notices that she's a girl. He calls in Shang Li and he figures it out. And even though he's supposed to kill her, he doesn't because he said that she saved his life. So he personally thinks we're even and he does not want to be lied to anymore. He leaves. Mulan then follows them to the Imperial City and tries to convince them as hard as she can, but he would not listen. It's only until they are attacked that they have to work together again. Anyway, they decide to go back to this Imperial City, and the warlord emperor himself decides he wants to personally take care of Bori Khan. And of course, he ends up getting caught and tied up and strapped to the top of like a pole. Okay, so we finally come to the conclusion, and this one is called The Fan vs. the Sword. So the remake of Disney decided that they wanted a different conclusion. The original animation had this beautiful build-up where it was a nighttime sky and all the people of the Imperial City gathered to watch the Emperor as the ambush happened. This one takes place during the day, and for some reason it takes place on a plank. I guess nobody's gonna ask, but I will. Why is there a plank suspended in thin air? What building purpose does this solve? Did it serve any purpose other than to be the conclusion of the movie? I'm just saying. Dave, we were supposed to do the roof. What is this? Well, it's a plank in case anybody decides to fight at any point. She kicks the sword out of his hand, catches it, and swipes at the rope, then grabs onto it like she's a buccaneer. He falls to his death while she swings over to the Emperor who they tied up to the top of everything. I mean, this guy must have fell 100 feet to his impending doom. There is no way he could look. Oh, he's up. The Emperor catches the arrow, then throws it up in the air as if Mulan was a dog, and he's like, And she turns into David Beckham and kicks herself off the wall, then boots the arrow back into the guy. She kicks the arrow. I can tell you one thing, this is some bullshit. She kicked the arrow. Why even have a bow when you just have feet? And that's the end fight of that movie. I want to compare this to the original. In the end of the original Mulan, she originally wasn't the one fighting the bad guy. It was Shang Li, and he gets knocked out, so she's forced to do it again. Instead of swinging down the rope to save herself, she ends up cutting it so that the boss can never get to the Emperor. They have a fight on the rooftops, and I think it's a really important symbolic scene when Mulan pulls out nothing but her fan. Mulan pulls out her fan and uses it to beat the sword of Shan Yu. In the animated version of Mulan, the fan is something given to girls in the movie, and it represents femininity. The swords are all given to men in that movie, and obviously represent masculinity. This is just my opinion or interpretation on the scene. I think by her using the fan to twist and beat the sword, it's sort of a changing of the guard, that femininity can win in an overly masculine world. I think the fan represents Mulan's own unique identity in society. The fan is her own thing, and she did it her way. And I think it's a really cool move. I wish they kept that in the remake, honestly. Mushu comes through with some explosives and basically almost kamikazes himself into Shan Yu, but he grabs onto the sword at the last minute, propelling Shan Yu straight into the fireworks. A great conclusion. So I did say at the start of Mulan, the original, I did cry in this movie. It got to me. I guess I didn't realize or didn't see this before. Final scene in both movies is when the Emperor confronts Mulan and then gives her props basically for saving China. Now after the big fight, I'm paraphrasing here, but Mulan is like, hey, I'm a girl, I'm sorry I lied to my family. And the Emperor is like, devotion to family is a necessity. You're cool. Then she goes back home and she meets her father, who is the most integral figure in her life. If there's any good thing to watch about this movie, it is the final scene. I think the acting between the two actors is very, very good, and it does convey the right emotions. You gotta give them props. And even though the acting's good, it's again overshadowed by the shitty writing, because Mulan and her father aren't the final thing in this movie. The Emperor then sends his guard back to like harass Mulan. He's like, reconsider, bro. And they give her a sword of her own. And she looks at it and she's like, wow. And then through the reflection of the sword, she sees the phoenix. Oh yes, the phoenix that has done so much in this movie for everyone. And it ends with some narration where her father's like, yes, she did join the army and she became a warrior, a soldier, and a legend. I don't know how tone deaf these writers were to miss the original point of Mulan, but it's not about her being a soldier. It's not at all about her going to the army. Mulan is a movie about a girl who is trying her hardest to please her family, while coming to terms with the fact that she has different ideals than the rest of female society. And it's about her dad accepting her for who she is. And I'll show you that with this last scene. Let's end on a bang! So with the final scene, I think we should compare the emperors from both movies. So in the remake, the emperor is like a crazy warlord for some reason. He tries to exact revenge on everybody at every time possible. He even fights himself in this war. This is contrasted with the animated version. The emperor is seen as a wise character who has a calm demeanor throughout his tenor. And I think this character might be the most underestimated character in Mulan, is the fact that the emperor represents the highest form of patriarchy in society, and he represents hundreds or thousands of years of culture on these morals of men doing this and women doing that. And in the animated version, after berating Mulan, he bows down to her, and to me it's a gesture of saying we were wrong. The highest form of male order bowing down and saying, you know what, there is place for females in, not only females in a man's world, but a female can do a job just as well, if not better. And I accept that. And because he bows, everyone else does too. So they bow down to Mulan, which I think is such a fitting end, because only an emperor who is as wise as he is could admit that he was wrong. The emperor then offers Mulan a place in the army, and she's like, I just want to get back to my family. I kind of miss them. And the emperor respects this decision, and he's like, okay, fine, but before you go, take this. He puts a pendant around her neck saying, you've saved the imperial city. Then he gives her a sword to say, you've saved China. Can you imagine being given those two things, those two tokens? How amazing it would feel. So there's a scene at the start of the movie when Mulan is sad. Her father comes and sits next to her. He looks at a flower and he says, wow, the flowers are coming in great, but there is one flower that hasn't blossomed. And he says sometimes the flowers that take the longest to blossom are the best ones. When we revisit the scene, the father is sitting in that same exact spot with his head down, just waiting for his daughter to come back. And as he does, that flower that didn't blossom at the start of the movie finally does, and it lands next to him. And then she comes. She finds him sitting there, and she immediately drops to her knees, and she gives him the sword of Shang Yu and the Emperor's crest. Here, the Emperor gave me some of the stuff. Just take it. I missed you. The two things that anybody else would have thought were the most important things in the world, she just gives to her father because she just wants to be forgiven. But by this point, the father has like figured it out. He throws that shit to the ground. He's like, I don't care about this either. I don't care about the Emperor shit. I don't care about Shang, whatever the fuck that guy's name is. I don't care about his shit. I want my daughter. And they share like this long hug. I just like, you know, it's kind of the last scene in the movie where it's like the family is the most important thing. Like she only went to war to save her dad, and her dad was so grateful that he didn't care about what she brought back as long as she came back okay. That's Disney for you. The values of it are so good. Oh man, I love this movie. To top it off, Shang Li comes over for dinner to try and scoop his girl, and he does successfully scoop her. And the animated movie actually ends with Mushu getting his guardian place back for successfully helping Mulan. So everyone reaches their arc in the end, and it's a fitting conclusion to quite a fantastic movie. Okay, we got through this, guys. We got through it. Final thoughts on the movie is that the remake of Mulan falls very short of what Mulan actually intends to be. I'm actually surprised that they didn't push the feminist agenda more in that Mulan movie. I think the fight scenes were way too long in the movie and didn't really serve a purpose. And I'm super sad that it took 4 writers to adapt a movie that was nearly perfectly written and make it worse. I'm sorry to say, but if you like the animated version of Mulan, you're not gonna like this one. The only people who were going to watch Mulan would be our generation or the ones older than us. The way they advertised this movie, it wasn't for people who didn't know the story of Mulan. It was to profit off of our nostalgia and maybe hope that we would one day re-fall in love with this movie. But I don't like it because these stories are already perfect. Disney, you guys could not have done it better than in the 90s. Besides profit, I cannot think of another reason why you'd want to redo this movie. And I'm kind of hoping that they don't do it to the other classics, but we're running out of classics. Instead of remaking these classics, maybe they could focus on just creating other ones. I'm sure they can do it. It's not like they're not talented. If you stuck around till the end, I just want to say thank you so much. You're a real Mushu for that one. I had to talk about it in detail, and I'm sorry I got so nerdy over it, but it is one of my favorite movies, and for the reasons I explained. I just wanted to say my piece. So I'm just waiting till they make another one of these 2D animations anytime. Please, Disney. Once again, if anybody wants to Disney draw me, I would love that. Alright, enough brown nosing. This is time to go. You guys better get on with your day or watch 10 more YouTube videos I made. That would be great. Either or, you guys are the best. And from me and Fluff, stay safe. Goodbye. We love you and take care.
Taking back control, going on a pole. You don't gotta let me, just be making that money.